Hey y'all, welcome back to our channel. Ashley here. I did things a little different in this video. I recorded all of the footage and then did a voiceover just to mix it up a little. But today I'm going to show you how to make wooden signs just like this one for special events from scratch. So here we go. We are two gals and a paintbrush.
Sparkly,
yeah.
Here, but I can tell you what we're not doing.
We are very strong-willed.
That's actually a running joke. Ashley wants to paint everything key lime. I think she says it just to bother me. There's nothing we can't do.
Yeah, nothing.
Please ignore our mess. We're a work in progress at all times.
We used 1x4s to make this sign. I like the width of 1x4s without it being so deep so it won't be heavy. But you can see that I'm measuring with a yardstick to the desired length, marking the board, and then making my cut with a corded miter saw. Behind me, Tish is laying out the boards on the ground so we can get an idea of what the sign is going to look like and figure out what's left to cut. Once all the boards are cut, we used Titebond 2 to glue a piece of wood to the back, and then we added a nail to each board for extra support. It's really important to check the length of your nails so that they don't poke through the front of the sign, and take it from us because that has happened to us way too many times. But if you aren't able to put nails through, the glue would hold it all together. I would just recommend clamping it all together and letting it dry overnight. After the back supports are on and everything is looking good and level, we sanded the signs with a 240 grit sandpaper. You do want to make sure that the wood is smooth to the touch so that the stain applies nice and evenly. And we use the Minwax stain in dark walnut. You can pick that up at Lowe's. But with signs like this, it's very important to stain the sides as well as the back of the boards because you don't want to be able to see any raw wood through the little cracks. And Tisha is just wiping off the excess stain so that it doesn't go too dark. I used my Silhouette Cameo to cut out the stencil for these signs. I highly recommend getting a Silhouette to anyone that doesn't have one, especially if you are in the crafting world. It is the best present I've ever gotten. I believe Matt got this for me for Christmas like 3 or 4 years ago, and it's still going strong. But I am using contact paper to cut out the stencil. It's always a good idea to use an alternative to vinyl when you're doing a stencil because you just throw it away. Some people use nicer vinyl, but this is just what I had. So when you make stencils for signs, you do what's called reverse weeding. So you peel out the inside of the vinyl instead of the outside. Anyone who does vinyl knows what I'm talking about, but you just peel out the letters and then you place transfer tape over the entire stencil to make sure no small pieces get lost. And then I just take it to the sign and I measure exactly where I want it to go. I'm not even gonna lie, I cut out quite a bit of me measuring this because I'm so particular. Plus, I'm using contact paper for the stencil, which is clear, so it's very hard to see. So I just wanted to make sure that it was exactly straight because I can't stand for words to be crooked. Once I get it exactly straight, you can see I have a little L that I cut out of a scrap piece of contact paper, and I place that in the top corner of the stencil so that when I take the backing off, I know exactly where to lay it back down. Once you know exactly where you're going to put your stencil and you've measured, you flip it over and take your backing off. I know that there are a lot better ways to make hand-painted signs, but this is what I've always done and this is what works for me. I'm sure there's some people out there watching this video like, girl, what are you doing? But this is what has always worked for me, and I think it turns out pretty good. So when you're ready, you place the stencil back exactly. You line it up with that little L that I showed you earlier, and then lay it down flat, and you know that everything is straight and good to go. It looks like it's a little crooked, but it's not. I measure based off of my letters, not my tape. because sometimes my tapes are not exactly straight because I can't cut a straight line to save my life. So once everything's down, you remove the transfer tape and make sure all your bubbles are out of your stencil, and then you're ready to paint. The next step after peeling all your transfer tape up and making sure your stencil is down and no bubbles are in there is to prime. Priming is so important when making a stencil onto raw wood because it's very, very easy for bleed through to happen. So I take Mod Podge and paint it over the entire stencil. Another primer that's even better than Mod Podge, in my opinion, is polycrylic. And I'll insert a picture of that at the end because it's also what I use to seal this piece. But you just paint it on all over the stencil. Let it dry and then choose whichever paint you would like. And I like to apply my paint with a foam brush shaped like a circle because I feel like I have more control of it and it's easier to keep it inside of the letters and not onto the wood. So dab it all over the stencil. You may need more than one coat depending on the coverage you like, and let that dry. It looks a little crazy once it's dry, but I promise it's going to be beautiful. So now you're ready to peel up your stencil and see how nice clean those lines are. There's a few tiny bleed throughs which probably wouldn't happen if I had polycrylic, but it's nothing that can't be fixed with a small artist brush. One of my favorite tools that I use that actually came with my silhouette is this tiny hook, and you'll see in just a second. It's so easy to get those little pieces out from in between the letters. That hook just peels it right up. Especially if your paint's not all the way dry, like mine probably isn't. It helps to not smudge your paint. Once you get all the small pieces out, make any touch-ups that are needed and make sure your paint is nice and dry, and then you're ready to seal. So like I said earlier, I sealed this piece with polycrylic, which I will insert a picture of here. I didn't film this process, but I just applied polycrylic with a foam brush. I love to apply it with a foam brush because there are no brush strokes, and let it dry, and then you're good to go. It's nice and sealed. It can be outside for short periods of time. If it's going to be outside for a long time, I would seal it, give it a few more coats of sealer. But this piece looked so beautiful outside of their ceremony. It was for their wedding. And I just really appreciate Chelsea and Molly allowing me to do this for their wedding and trusting me with it. I think it turned out so good. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Give this video a big thumbs up if you want to see more like it. Thanks for watching.